It is now 42 years that the first Nuremberg Forum on Education for Cultural Encounter took place at our university and our chair. And I want to at first express my great thanks to Werner Hausmann, who prepared this first Nuremberg Forum with me at that time, and there have been followed so many afterwards. And the results have been published in 13 books, and they are, I think, very helpful in the whole educational field, and especially in the theme of education for sustainable development. And I'm very grateful to Manfred Perner, who continued the tradition of the Nuremberg Forum with me in this university. But now it's my pleasure and honor to respond to Bhai Sahib Mohinder Singh's opening presentation. We have known and appreciate each other for many years through our work with Religions for Peace. He is one of the presidents and initiator of many important activities. In particular, I would like to mention the Charter for Forgiveness, which he has inspired together with Josef Beuhle, and they have spread it out in many countries of the world. It was adopted by the World Assembly of Religions for Peace in Lindau in 2019. What he perhaps doesn't know that in 1989, Werner and I had a great trip through the whole of England and Scotland, studying the educational work in interreligious fields to prepare his dissertation on religious education and interreligious perspective in comparison of England and Germany. And you have also inspired the famous Birmingham syllabus, from which we learned much for our work. I myself have been advisor to Religions for Peace for 40 years, and as chairman of the Peace Education Standing Commission, with which we have documented many interreligious peace education projects and brought them into exchange with each other. Now summarized in my new book, Interreligious and Peace Education in Times of Crisis, A History of Religions for Peace. The book, it's the first book which I received this morning, and it summarizes the work of Religions for Peace in the field of education for peace since 1970, when the organization was founded. You have explained to how the task of education for sustainability can be derived from the center of your religious tradition, the Sikh religion. You have shown us the treasure that can be found in your holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, and in the teachings and work of your gurus since Guru Nanak. You have shown that in the Guru Granth Sahib, the own oneness of creation is a leading conviction, as God himself is one. God is present as creative light in all human beings. One God, one humanity. God is in the temple as well as in the mosque. This is the fundamental message of Guru Nanak and also of the other gurus. Throughout their lives, the gurus not only espoused the importance of equality, but demonstrated the importance of it being put into practice. For Sikh believers, this means to further common goals for humanity and to be active for them. As a special religious asset, you explain in your fourth thesis, I quote, "We are called also to see our existence in the infinite context of time and space that stretches forever beyond our own lifetime. This humbles and spurs us to live more consciously by recognizing our mortality and considering our legacy for future others. Thinking of sustainability, we acknowledge a higher power that sustains our life in the complex web of creation, a universal sustainer who blesses nature with an awesome self-sustaining capacity that we can all learn from. Whilst educators may be cautious to use the word God, faith perspectives spark of wonder, curiosity, and conviction about an underlying wisdom, intelligence, and power that keeps the world in balance. I would also highlight what you are carrying out in your 11th thesis. As humans, we build many alliances, blocs, and unions for trade, for agriculture, for economics. A spiritual perspective encourages us to see an even deeper connectedness, a kinship with one another as children of one God, and a kinship with all realms of nature. As 6, we are called to serve the Creator through serving creation in the spirit and Sabbath Allah of serving the well-being of all and seeing a greater whole behind the parts. To live on earth as custodians of the planet means exercising responsibilities as we enjoy the rights of residency divinely granted to us. I would like to place your comments in the context that we developed in the Peace Education Working Group at the World Assembly of Regions for Peace in Lindau, 2019. The Working Group on Peace Education gathered there with activists in the field of religious and interreligious education from 10 different countries and different religions and educational contexts in America, North and South, Africa, Asia, and Europe, against the backdrop of the experience that in many social, cultural, and religious contexts, a decline of values can be found as a source of conflict, intolerance, and misbehavior. Education, on the other hand, is one of the most important factors for breaking down ignorance and prejudices, which are the dangerous preconditions for violent conflict. In Lindau, the main issue has been to explain the specific religious assets for peace education, which can be gained out of the spiritual sources of the religions. These are values which go beyond what states and politics can regulate. They can be promoted within the religious communities and by interreligious cooperation can also inspire public education. This was explained in reflecting fundamental convictions and fundamental values. First, fundamental convictions. Religions have, each in a specific way, a conviction of the fundamental unity of mankind and of the interrelationship of all living and existing beings. Believing in God in the monotheistic religions includes the traditions of creation. This has as consequence to be thankful for creation and being responsible for it, to act in solidarity with all creatures, living apart from selfish egoism, experiencing security out of the belief in God, being critical of idolizing selfish aims, being engaged for the weak and for an inclusive life with the handicapped. Believers are connected in consciousness for the integrity of creation. In the tradition of the non-theistic religions, for example, in specific branches of Buddhism, it is the interdependence of everything living and existing, which shall lead away from selfish worldviews to a comprehensive consciousness of sensitivity and responsibility. These convictions imply a fundamental pedagogical perspective. Only if members of the rising generation have respect for their fellow human beings, feel responsibility for all creation, animate and inanimate, and are sensitive to hatred, violence, and all developments which are hostile to life and society, will they be equipped for a life in community which opens up a future for our planet. Second, fundamental values. In the letter of the 138 leading Muslim personalities to the representatives of Christianity from 2007, the so-called Common World, it is highlighted that Islam, Judaism, and Christianity have a common heritage in the double commandment, love God and love your neighbor. In the Bible as well as in the Quran, this is explained in many ways for many specific situations and challenges. In the Torah, for example, concerning the dignity and the well-being of the stranger. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus extending to love your enemy. In the Quran, referring to a society of living in solidarity. In the Buddhist tradition, the spiritual awakening and the liberation from suffering are closely related with the ability and empathy with all that lives and exists, a readiness for ways from a concern with the self and entanglement in the self to a selfishness which makes free for an all-embracing compassion. Love, compassion, tolerance, ability to forgive, truthfulness, hope are values which cannot be imposed by law, but which are inherent in the religious traditions and which are necessary for a real well-being of society. This can be experienced and trained with the adolescents in religious communities. And it would be the best if they are trained in cooperation of religious communities and school. The impulses of the World Assembly in Lindau were deepened and expanded in a newly formed international standing commission strengthening interreligious education. In our commission work, we, together with educational experts of different faiths and from different countries, ranging from the Philippines over the Middle East to Europe and North America. Each of our Zoom meetings is an adventure around the globe. Of course, in the Philippines, it's mostly very late in the evening. And in New York, it's 9 in the morning. And in Nuremberg, it's in the afternoon. And in California, they have to arise the night before. So we welcome each other with different greets. In the Zoom meetings, we have at first looked and asked for theological and spiritual foundations which inspire and encourage us for the necessary learning processes. We have worked on a book titled Faithful Peace, Why the Journey to Build Resilience is Multi-Religious. A great inspiration for it has been our former General Secretary, Adza Karam. It was launched in September 2022. It is the outcome of the first phase of the Standing Commission. The Commission work is guided by a vision of positive peace, which is far more than the absence of war. It includes justice, welfare, and responsibility for all that lives and exists. Looking at the theological and spiritual foundations which inspire and encourage us for the necessary learning process can be characterized as bird's eye. The Commission members share the rich and specific sources of the leaders' communities when asked what, for their spiritual experience, they can contribute to interreligious dialogue and learning. The key question for us was, why do we what we do? Most of the articles combine it with reflecting actual challenges and showing concrete examples of interreligious cooperation. I will, at the end, give the indigenous view of Pascal Fremont as an example. Pascal Fremont is an interreligious activist with an indigenous background and president of Religions for Peace Canada. She writes on indigenous spiritualities, theological and spiritual foundations of First Peoples engagement in interfaith cooperation. It is important that traditions of indigenous spiritualities are taken seriously for the inspiration of interreligious dialogue and learning, after having been neglected for a long time. They provide support for the necessary new thinking, addressing the survival crisis of our planet with a holistic view of humans and nature. Pascal Fremont presents a helpful vocabulary showing the interconnectedness of all life. She offers images which illustrate the complex and diverse ways in which the First Peoples religions see social and cultural customs with reference to the sacred and the supernatural. The conviction of the deep interconnectedness and sacredness of all that lives and exists should be acknowledged as a major challenge to the theologians of other religions. It is a fundamental problem that the manifold motivations for an open interreligious encounter, for learning together and from each other, and for fruitful cooperation are confronted with narrow-minded thinking and strategies in all religions. At present, as in the past, borders are erected and religions and worldviews of the other are devalued. It is therefore crucial to outline the principles or motivations for openness, tolerance, and solidarity at the heart of the religious traditions, in their holy scriptures and spirituality, their cultural, ritual, and social life, with arguments as well as with practical encounters, dialogue, and cooperation. I think this is an obligation for us all. Thank you.